Herzlich willkommen zu 99:1. Welcome to 99:1. My name is Nadim. This is an English episode, so that's why I'm speaking English now, obviously. We today have the honor to have a guest here that we've been actually wanting to talk to for quite a while. He is a quite very well-known, famous author. We are going to discuss this book here, and I'm going to say a few things about the book and about the author in a second. But first, let me get him in right away. Shlomo Sand, welcome to 99:1. Shlomo, hello.
Hello.
Nice to have you here. So just for people to know who Shlomo Sand is, in case this introduction is necessary at all, he's an Austrian-born Israeli historian. He's a socialist. He has served as an emeritus professor, so emerited now at the professor of history at Tel Aviv University since 2014. And maybe the book that he's best known for, at least, let's say, popular known for, is this book that's called The Invention of the Jewish People. It's very famous. We have it in German too. It's called Die Erfindung des jüdischen Volkes. And there is a second book that's also very interesting, that I think followed up, is The Invention of the Land of Israel. And the book that we're talking today is his newest, that is called Israel-Palestine, Federation, or Apartheid. There are also a couple of other books that you can find, one of them, for example, being How I Stopped Being a Jew. And all of them are very interesting. We hope to have Shlomo on here a couple of times more, if that's possible, to speak also about the other books. But first, let's talk about this book. Shlomo, is there anything regarding your person that I missed, or something that should be added regarding your introduction? Is there something you want to say before I continue?
No. You see, as you say, I was born in Germany, near Munich, München.
Actually, Germany. Okay, I thought Austria, but okay, interesting.
Yeah, sorry. I was born in Austria in Linz, but immediately after it, my parents took me to a camp of refugees in Traunstein, near Munich. I lived my first 2 years in Munich, in Traunstein.
Okay. That's a Polish refugee camp? Was it a Polish one, or?
It's a Jewish refugee camp after the war.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to receive Jews, and my parents, without willing, they emigrate to Palestine, Israel in 1948.
That's interesting, because my grandfather, so my father's side is Palestinian, my mother's side is Polish. So my grandfather, after the Second World War, he also grew up in a refugee camp very close to Nuremberg, which is called Langwasser. And I think that was mainly for Polish refugees.
Traunstein also was, most of the people was Polish Jews.
Yes. Also in this camp, there were a lot of Polish Jews. That's why I asked, was it if it was one of those camps? Interesting. Okay, great, good. So maybe let's talk about your book. This book is quite interesting and comes also at an interesting time. It's basically, if I were to summarize it, and of course you may correct me in a second, the book is basically a historical examination of early alternative Zionist ideas that propose solutions distinct from the ethno-nationalist Zionist ideology that has dominated Israel basically since its founding and until today. And the book also critically explores concepts, or let's say alternative concepts, to the so-called two-state solution. Specifically, it delves into the ideas and agendas of influential individuals at that time, or at the early pre-Israel, early Zionist times, and movements that advocated for various types of binational solutions. First, can you maybe say or put the book into context with your earlier works? I have already mentioned there's this book, The Invention of the Jewish People, also The Invention of the Land of Israel. Is there, like, if you were to speak about, your life work, is there a connection to these? Do you feel like this is like one of the conclusions that you're looking at, or how would you see that in context of your work?
You see, from 67, then I was a young soldier that came back from the war in 67. A few months after it, I become activist, and I fight more than 50 years for two-state solution. I thought that a Palestinian state is necessary in the frontier, in the borders of 67. Till the last 2-3 years that I started to think that the solution of two states, it's become more and more impossible. From a lot of reasons. I started to develop my ideas about it, and I thought that we cannot separate Israelis from Palestinians. Do you know, for example, that in Israel there is more than 2 million Israelis that are Palestinians? And also in the occupied West Bank, there are, with Jerusalem, Jewish Jerusalem, there are something like 850,000 Israelis. I thought to continue to fight for a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza became more and more a bluff. And I feel very bad about it, because I was for the autodetermination of the Palestinian people. And then I started to look on the past, because I am a historian. And I saw that from the beginning, as you know, I'm a historian, I'm not a Zionist. I never was a Zionist. I'm Israeli historian, okay? But I look carefully how the Zionist idea developed, and I was astonished. You know, beside Herzl, the founder of the idea of a Jewish state, we know the name of Echad Ha'am. That was a Zionist, but different from Herzl. And suddenly I discovered that he believed that the Jewish state in Palestine, it is not a honest thing. You cannot come to a place that the population is not Jewish and to build a Jewish state. Echad Ha'am was one of the founders, what we call in Israel or in historiography also, the spiritual Zionism. He was the father. He was very important. He finished his life in Tel Aviv, as I wrote in my book. You know, it's the only one I think that lived in the street that have his name. He got a street and they changed the name of the street. And I'm speaking about the 20s of the 20th century, okay? And he arrived to the conclusion that the Jewish state is not fair in Palestine. And he was a Zionist, and I was so shocked about it. And not only this, I discovered that he started to study Arabic in the end of his life. And it touched me, and I continued to look further. And then I discovered that most of the Zionist intellectuals of the left, of the pacifism, I'm speaking about, you know, people that are very important in the development of the Jewish and even the Zionist idea. For give you example, there are, you know, they were the group of the Alliance of Peace. Most of them were German Jews, if you want. And they developed the idea that it is not possible to build a Jewish state in the Middle East. It will not, it cannot be, from two reasons. One, it was humanistic. I mean, it's not fair for the indigene, for the people that live there, that it will be a Jewish state. And secondly, they thought that a Jewish state, exclusive Jewish state in the Middle East has not a future. And I'm speaking, maybe the auditor knows the name of Martin Buber. He is considered to be the most important Jewish philosopher, from German origin, by the way, in the 20th century. he lived in Germany till 38 and was obliged to leave, before it was too late. And then only then he emigrated to Palestine and developed the ideas of binationalism, that he said, the Jews that ran away from Europe, left Europe, if we want to build something in the Middle East, it has to be with the Arabs. And after it also, the person that I discovered was Magnus, the founder of the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. A person, unbelievable person from, if you want, American origin. I mean, he came from the United States. And he insists, till 48, he died in 1948, he insists that the only way for Jews to live in the Middle East is in a binational state. A Jewish, and he became a friend in 48, he became a close friend of Hannah Arendt. And she also supported him. That, by the way, he tried to convince the president of the United States, Truman, not to recognize a Jewish state, waiting to the day that it will be a binational state and then to accept this state. And in my book, I'm following this, and I was astonished. I'm not a Zionist, and most of them are Zionists. And I remember to be shocked. Also, the fact that Hannah Arendt, she wasn't exactly a Zionist. Hannah Arendt said that there is not any chance that a Jewish state can survive very, very long in the Middle East. She said in 48, every 10 years, Israel will have a war. It was sometimes 8, sometimes 12. More or less, she was right. Till now, till what happened a year ago on the 7th of October, we see that the exclusively Jewish state wasn't a good idea, and it isn't a good idea in my point of view, okay? And I say that maybe you will put the question about the 7th October, what I'm thinking. By the way, I'm not very optimistic in the book. I say that Palestine, Israel is not the only place that two people are living together, in fighting together, in killing together, from the Swiss state of the 19th century till the middle of the 19th century in Switzerland, the French Catholic and the German Protestant kill each other in a violent way, not less than the Israeli and Palestinian today. In 1848, it's finished. From 1848 till now, it was not active. I'm not sure that they like each other, but one thing is sure, they are not fighting. In the end of my book, I say that before arriving maybe to the possibility for a binational state, we will pass a few catastrophes. It's the end of the book. The Israeli state wasn't built because Herzl wrote the Jewish state, his book in the end of the 19th century. The Jewish state, the Israeli state, was built because of the Second World War. Without the Second World War, Israel state couldn't be established, I think. You understand? If we look very closely, we see that Jewish didn't want to go to Palestine. Till 1925, most of the Jewish living in the Russian Empire that suffered from pogroms and all other way of anti-Semitism, they leave the Russian Empire and go to United States. Till 1925, that it was Johnson, somebody that put forward laws against immigration of Jewish, Catholic, Chinese, and Japanese. In that day, 1925, we see the beginning of a real emigration to Palestine of Jewish. Not a lot of them, not a lot. I mean, after the close of United States were closed, then we see kind of emigration. It's not the Zionist idea. But even with this, Jewish started to go after 25 to Argentina and South America.
Still, I think until today, one of the maybe even the biggest Jewish community outside of Israel in Argentina. I think, right?
Yeah, it was always.
Yeah.
The parents of my wife came from Argentina after their parents left Poland to Argentina. Anyway, what I wanted to say that the legend that the Jewish want after 2,000 years going back to their land is a myth. Jews didn't want to go to arrive. A very, very little minority. Very, very little minority. By the way, if the auditor want to know why, first of all, the religious Jews, it was forbidden for them to go to Palestine because they know that going to Palestine is only after the Messiah will arrive. Till the Messiah.
The Messiah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Messiah, sorry.
All good.
I'm used to speak much
French.
more French.
Yeah.
Messiah. Till the Messiah will not come, it's forbidden to go there. It's not a place to live. It's a place of redemption after the Messiah. This is the reason. Till now, you have a large group of Jewish in the United States and also in Europe that are against Zionism very, very strongly because they think the Zionist is against Judaism, against the belief of 2,000 years of Judaism. Anyway, the Second World War, this terrible catastrophe from the Jewish and for the Tzigan, create the condition of immigration where Palestine. From 45 till 48, it was a wave of immigration of Jewish that came from the refugee camp in Germany, like my family. Like when I was a child of 2 years, I was brought to Palestine because there were no any other place to go. My father did a lot to arrive to Canada like his brother, but it doesn't work. Anyway, Israel was created by the catastrophe. Now there is catastrophe, and a lot of Israelis like me are afraid that they will continue. And I think that Hannah Arendt, in the book I show it, was right. A Jewish exclusivist state cannot exist from a lot of reasons. And also the fact that with the colonization of the West Bank, and also the fact if you see the cart of Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs between the river and the sea, you see that you cannot really separate it today. It's and also, the 7th October that shocked everybody convinced me much more that the option of two-state solution, I mean a little state in West Bank with Gaza, will be a Bantustan. You know what is the Bantustan in South Africa. And I don't believe that it can happen. And also asking myself why this terrible 7 October happened. It was not 67 that pushed so many people in Gaza to this terrible act. I examined all the biography of the members, the leadership of Hamas. In all of them are children of refugees that were pushed away from Palestine in 48. All of them, Ismail Haniyeh, Mohammed Deif, Sinwar, and the founder of the Hamas was born in a village, El Majdal, that became Ashkelon. Don't if somebody want to understand this kind of conflict in ways of finding ways to stop this killing, mutual killing, I think that the solution of, I'm not against the solution, everything that can stop this occupation, this apartheid, I call it apartheid in the West Bank, everything that can stop it is good. Even a two-state solution, I'm not against. I don't believe, but I'm not against. But I think that the solution, if there will be a solution, would be also with the question of the returning us partly of the refugees of 48. It will not be a solution without 48. You understand me? It's not 67. It's very tough to say to the Israelis. It's not simple to say to the Israelis, and also for the Palestinians today with this atmosphere, of synthesis between nationalism and religion that it separate everywhere, in Israel, in Palestine. Then I'm not a very optimistic, but I am not a fatalist. You understand? I'm afraid that it will be a few more catastrophes. But in the end, for Israeli from Jewish origin, the only possibility to live in the Middle East is to live with the Palestinians. There is not any other solution that I can dream, but living together as like Achad Ha'am, like Martin Buber, like Hannah Arendt said, we have to try to construct a binational state with equality and liberty for everybody from the river to the sea. This is my book. And as a historian, it's not a political pamphlet. It is the book is in some way, it's a historical book that examines, the border of Zionism, of a kind of intellectuals that justified a kind of Zionism, but knowing that without the indigenous, the people that living there will not be a solution. This is my book. In the end, I am very pessimistic today because of the situation. But if the two people will live together, in my point of view, it can be only in federation. In what I call, like the Belge, like the Spanish, with the Catalan, in the Catalan, Basque, and Castilian, like in a lot of, like in Canada, like in Swiss, all these countries, there were a kind of beginning of national groups that could not fulfill their imagination, national imagination, and they built federations. From Switzerland in the middle of the 19th century till, if you want, Ireland, North Ireland, in the 20th century, where people killed each other, murder each other, oppress each other. In the end, they arrived to live together in one state. This is my dream. I become old, but I hope. In what happened in the 7th October convinced me much more that the solution of building a little state, a little Bantustan, if you want. It is Bantustan. Like a little Palestinian Bantustan, like the Saudian maybe are dreaming. I don't believe that it will solve the problem of this conflict, deep conflict of it's very interesting. These figures in the book that spoke about be nationalist. They know that Zionism is colonization. They know.
Sure.
They wrote.
I mean, their institutions were
never-
called colonizing funds, like the Jewish colonizing fund or something like this.
But they
were
say
open to
that
it.
with this colonization, we have to stop this relationship between the colon and the indigene. How we say indigene in English?
Yeah, indigenous.
Natives.
Yeah, natives, indigenous people. Yeah.
And this is my book that was published in English, in Hebrew, because all my books I publish it first in Hebrew, and after it was published in French. Now it's coming as a little book in English.
It's in German now too, I saw, or it's at least being prepared in German as far as I know.
It's going, it was translated because I wrote this book on the translation. I'm not speaking German, but I studied German. You have to understand. In university, my second language was German.
So we should make a German episode then. That's
yeah, but I didn't use it for years. The German language, unfortunately.
Yeah. I have a couple of follow-up questions. Some of them are also in the document, but maybe just a note. While I was reading the book, I could very much feel this tension, and like when I say feel, I mean emphasize with it of seeing a possible solution, maybe even like a melancholy, looking back into the past and seeing that there were people that already had this in mind, that there is a problem there that needs to be solved, and that they were basically intellectually already like close to a solution for that problem, and that it never had a chance. And at the same time, that there is, on the one hand, then maybe a kind of optimism that, yeah, okay, maybe it's still possible that we can convince some people. On the other hand, and this is really, you say this like maybe 4 or 5 times in the book, I haven't counted, but you say it really quite a few times, that you are very pessimistic about this actually being realized. And this would be maybe my follow-up question. I think after October 7th, which, by the way, this book was mostly written before, I think, but there is there is a forward, I think, that refers to October 7th. And after October 7th, I think there is another solution now, maybe more on the table, at least in discourse, where it seems like the consequence of the ethno-exclusive Zionist branch is becoming more and more realized, where people in this field, where you say, these fanatics and stuff, they come much more to this conclusion of it, which is to say, okay, then let's get rid of these people. So my question to you would be, when you say there cannot be a solution for Israel, thinking that at least until now, the biggest empire in the world is standing more or less completely behind what Israel is doing, why do you not think that there can be a solution? There could be and I'm being a bit maybe provocative here by saying there is a final solution, right? Liquidation, ethnic cleansing, deporting those people, creating humanitarian disaster so that the people leave for themselves, voluntary immigration, like they say.
You see, it's very interesting. The dream of most of the Zionists from Ben-Gurion till Bibi Netanyahu was to transfer.
Right.
Not to kill. I didn't find.
No. Yes.
What we call the transfer.
Right.
I don't like the ethnic cleansing, the word that started to be very popular after the wars in ex-Yugoslavia, because it builds a lot of ethnic, and I don't believe in all this. The Muslims in Serbia become a ethnic.
Yeah.
It was never a ethnic.
No. Yeah.
And I am a little bit, about the ethnic cleansing. What is sure that in 48, a lot of Zionists wanted to push away the Arabs that will become a Palestinian people. Now, they couldn't do it. It wasn't simple. They started to do here and there, but they didn't do it. In the end, they pushed a part of it, and all these refugees that I spoke before. But they didn't succeed to make a transfer of the local population in 48. They pushed away, and they didn't, resolve the problem.
Right.
Now, about today, I'm sure that in the government of Bibi Netanyahu, there are a lot of dreaming of pushing away. By the way, they wanted to push the Gazwa, the people in Gaza, they wanted to push them to Sinai.
Sinai, they were open about that. Yeah.
They wanted, the desire exists till now, but United States will not let them to do, because it can put the Egyptian regime in a problem. Egypt will not accept it. This is the problem. Secondly, about the Jordan, also to push the Palestinian to Jordan will finish with the Jordan regime. It is dangerous for all the conservative regime in the Middle East. It's very dangerous for the Saudian. You understand?
Yes.
Then I think that the transfer, they cannot do it because the United States will not let them, not for a humanistic point of view, because it can put all the Middle East in a permanent crisis.
Right.
That nobody knows how it will finish. In Egypt, in Jordan, in Saudi. This is the reason that they are blocked with the Palestinian, together. You understand me?
Right.
Then I don't believe in transfer that, and also in transfer will put Israel in a war with all the Middle East. You understand? Cleaning the Palestinian for Palestine will put all the Middle East in a permanent war. In United States, know about it. In Trump, even if we see him as a crazy man today, Trump knows that it's very dangerous for all the positions of the United States in the Middle East. That Israel can solve their problem with Palestinians by a transfer, by cleaning Palestine, but all the Middle East will become a big problem. This is the reason that Israeli doesn't know what to do today. You understand? And the government of Bibi Netanyahu knows very well that he cannot build a Bantustan like Biden dreamed about it. We don't know what will be the attitude of Trump today. But one thing is important, that the Cecil, the Trev that fortunately happened in Gaza, people believe that Trump gave an order to Bibi Netanyahu to hold the war.
The ceasefire agreement.
Maybe it's true. You understand? A lot of people.
It seems so. The Haaretz is reporting this themselves, and apparently it's credible.
Then there is not a solution. In Bantustan, to build with the Palestinian Authority in the little Bantustan, like the Saudians are dreaming, it will not be a solution. It will not stop the violence, I believe. In what happened the 7th October shows that it's not only a direct Israeli occupation. It's deeply, this conflict between a colonization that built the nation, the Israeli nation, in a local population that was more and more a strong nation that resists the occupation. Now, thinking how it can be solved today. I am a pessimistic. I know that probably it will not happen in my life. Maybe in your life, but not in my life. But Israel cannot exist in the Middle East without the Palestinians. You understand? I don't believe that there is a future for a Jewish exclusive state like Hannah Arendt say. I don't think that it is. The only way that the Israeli continue to live in the Middle East is only with the Palestinians. And probably in a binational state, like in Canada, like in Belgium.
We're going to speak about the binational paradigm in a sec, but maybe just one follow-up. For example, if you take the fighting between the Swiss nationalities, like the Swiss French and the Swiss Germans, I think the difference that you have there is that there was such a big time, long time of war between fractions that both of them had so much damage, took so much damage from it, that at some point, and I think also this is a little bit what you're getting at some point people just become more or less tired of all the violence and realize they need to arrange with each other basically, and find a way to live together because they can't solve that. I think the difference that we see in Gaza, in Gaza and in the West Bank is the power imbalance that basically allows Israeli societies to a vast extent. I mean, of course, 7th of October was a very dramatic exemption from this rule, but in the rule, Israeli society can live more or less unimpeded and also uninjured by attacks from Gaza, just because they don't have the capacities to attack this country. On the other hand, if there is an attack like this one, which was so terrible, the amount of destruction that it is caused on the other side is so big that, I mean, people are righteously saying that this looks like genocidal intent, because it actually can turn out, as an answer in this disproportionate violence situation. The answer of the powerful can actually turn out to be genocidal. So that is why I'm saying, why not think of this, like an escalating ladder of violence, but the difference is there, and at some point that might be the conclusion of some people, and I think even some people speak like this, that they want to end the existence of the Palestinians. And there's where like this transfer idea transfers automatically in this kind of liquidation aspect. What do you think about, like, does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I wanted to, if not transfer, it cannot be realized, then a genocide, you say.
Yeah, something like this. Like it's a logical conclusion at some point, because if there is violence still coming from Hamas and people like that,
Yeah, but I don't believe it. I don't believe that the Israeli society will accept a genocide, not because it is the Jewish from the Holocaust, but when I'm walking about the Zionist imagination, a genocide is very far from most of the currents in the Zionist thinking. Transfer was imminent, but not genocide. And when I worked 15 years about the Zionism and the imagination of the Zionists, there is some limits. This is one thing. And secondly, and it's not less important, United States accept everything from Israel. But I don't believe that United States will accept a genocide process, because they are going with the genocide of the Palestinians, they will lose the Middle East. The interest of United States is against this possibility, this option. But you are right. Nobody knows what can happen in the future. A very, very large catastrophe can happen. I don't believe, by the way, not because moral reasons, even if also from point of view of moral reasons, I don't believe that Israel can commit a genocide. I don't believe it. They can kill a lot of Palestinians. They are killing a lot of Palestinians. But as I understand the Israeli society, there were more people that will leave Israel, Israelis, much more. By the way, the process started. A lot of Israelis are leaving today. Friends of mine are leaving Israel today. And I think that if the possibility of a genocide will make empty Israel from a lot of Israelis that will understand that the future living in the Middle East has no possibility, like Hannah Arendt say. Now, going back to understand the conflict, Ben-Gvir is the name of the most extreme politician that was a minister till a week ago in the government of Bibi Netanyahu. Ben-Gvir, a pupil of Kahana, the worst Zionist in Israel today, maybe, from point of view, moral point of view. Ben-Gvir, I believe he didn't speak about it. I'm quite sure that he knows Arabic. His parents came from Iraq. The name of the parents and the grandparents was Arabic. I'm quite sure.
I didn't know that.
You can imagine it?
Yeah, crazy.
And unbelievably, he spoke Arabic at home. And he's the worst.
Right.
Then there is something we have to understand very complicated. His parents were Jewish Iraqian that arrived with the Arabic to Israel. You understand? His grandparents spoke at home Arabic. I'm quite sure he never said it, that he knows Arabic. Unfortunately, I didn't arrive to speak freely Arabic. You understand that in this conflict, you have a lot of stages that it's very difficult to understand them. I am not a Zionist. Ben-Gvir is the extreme Zionist that is speaking Arabic. In a lot of his words are speaking Arabic. By the way, to tell the truth, they are Arabic. You understand? Jewish Arabic, like there is Polish Jewish, there is Arabic Jewish. In Ben-Gvir is, his grandparent knew only Arabic. Then I want the people that heard us and see us to understand that there is levels in this conflict that are not clearly, it left for the future a lot of things. As I say, I am very pessimistic. I don't believe too much after what happened in our new century in the world. I'm not very pessimistic. The fact that in the third world, the symbiosis, instead of the symbiosis between nationalism and socialism, that wasn't always very, very nice, we have the synthesis Borom law between nationalism and religion. Not only Palestine, not only in Iran, even in End, you understand? This new symbiosis that I hope that will not continue to develop so strongly everywhere. By the way, I say about Hamas, about Israel, the symbiosis between, nationalism and religion is stronger. The phenomenon is that, the myth of the future was dying. Then always when the myth of the future are going back, the myth of the past becomes stronger. And the symbiosis between religion and nationalism is to build the myth of the past, you understand, much more than the myth of the future. For me, socialism is the myth of the future, like communism, socialism. We are living in a time we don't know how it will be developed. In Israel, in Palestine, in Gaza, the symbiosis between nationalism and religion is very strong. And it's catastrophic for the moment. I'm not speaking about religion. By the way, most of the part of the intellectual in this book that was for binationalism was religious people, Jewish religious people. Martin Buber was a religious philosopher. Then it's not religion, it's the symbiose, the new symbiose between nationalism in religion that I'm afraid, very afraid. But as I say, you know, Herzl, the founder of Zionism, said that if you will believe, it will happen one day, when he spoke about the Jewish state. And I say that the process of compromise, you cannot liquidate today the Israeli people without making a general catastrophe. You cannot liquidate the Palestinian people, and this is my belief, without a general catastrophe. You understand? I don't believe that Israel can genocide the Palestinian people. Maybe I'm wrong. But this I continue to believe and to insist that we don't have a choice. Now, to give you one thing very important. We have the 7th October. Israel is not afraid from the 7th October. They make a war of revenge. They killed a lot of people in Gaza, but it's not the will to liquidate the Palestinians. They know that they cannot do it. But what is important in this process, I try to understand a lot of things. I don't arrive to understand everything about it. But living with the Palestinian is the only way to live in the Middle East. And more people, Israelis, understand it. A part of them don't want to live with Arabs. They leave the country, you know. But as I told you, there is a few levels in the sensibility, the Israeli sensibility, that we don't understand it because there is not enough literature about it. As I told you about Ben Gvir. For me, Ben Gvir is a kind of, you know, half Arab. If he will hear our conversation, he will kill himself. But don't forget, most of the voters of Bibi Netanyahu came from the emigration of Jewish Arabs. Most of the electors of Bibi Netanyahu are more from Arab origin. For me, they are Jewish Arabs, you know. And then I say that our future, as I say, I believe the Echad Ha'am that started to study Arabic at the end of his life when he was 80. The founder of the spiritual Zionism started to study Arabic because he understands there is not a future for the Jewish in the Middle East without the Arabs. And I think that he was right. And this is the reason that I wrote the book about the option of a federation that keep from one side some culture of every group, but combine it with a political perspective.
Maybe this is now a term, it's a good point for you to explain a little bit about this term that you've been using a little bit, which is this spiritual Zionism. So this might be to German listeners, might be something they never heard of. They know Zionism, maybe. Even there, they might not even know what Zionism is, really. But in general, the idea is, yeah, okay, Zionism means it's a nationalist movement to the establishment of a Jewish state. And of course, the Jewish people have a right to their state and to a Jewish state, meaning that the state itself is supposed to have a Jewish character to it. This is how it's being spoken about here in Germany, at least, yeah? So first, maybe you can correct that. Maybe you say, no, Zionism is something else. And then maybe explain what is then spiritual Zionism? Like what does Ahad Ham, I think his name, what did he create there? Was he the founder of?
I didn't hear the end of your
Ahad
sentence.
Am, right? Was his name?
Yeah.
The founder of the spiritual
Yeah,
Zionism. So
it was,
what was his ideas?
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain his logic a little bit, and how does this differ from nationalist Zionist ideas?
because he say only this. Judaism is started to disappear as a spiritual belief, a spiritual. Then to keep something with this heritage of Jewish, we have to be as they say, a kind of Zionist that the target is not a state for itself. He opposed himself to Herzl, to this all this kind of Zionists that see that the target is only a state. He thinks that we have to create conditions that a kind of spiritual Judaism that will not be religious, but will take from the religion some heritage and build this culture, a Jewish culture, but not a political Jewish culture. I mean, a state, yes, but, a binational state, not a state for itself, because a state for itself is not Jewish, cannot be Jewish. He was not a believer in God and all this, but he said that to save something from Judaism, we can build a binational state. To save something from the, this heritage, long heritage of Judaism. This is Echad Ha'am. Now, there are a lot of people that, followed him in the intellectuals of Jerusalem. Yeah, they feel that he was right, because the political Zionism will be always in a conflict with the people, the Arabs in the land. In spiritual can live with the Arab culture together in one state. I tried more or less to explain this tendency, but most of Gershon Scholem, for example, a part of these historians, a part of his life was supporting the idea of a binational state. Not only Martin Buber, Magnus, Hannah Arendt. Most of the intellectuals in the 20s thought that keeping something from Judaism, from the long history of Judaism, can be built in a binational state. Why? Because there will, there will be a political will to do it, but not make it more simple. A state is only a tool. You understand? It's not a target. It's only a tool. We say tool in English, yeah?
Yes.
A state is a tool.
I understand. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's not a target. It's not a spiritual target. A state is nothing for Adam. If a state can keep some Judaism, not religion, but Judaism, the heritage of Judaism, it's good. If not, there is not any use of a state. This is the position of Echad Ha'am. Now, we can find till today, Alebet Yeshua, maybe the greatest Israeli writer. In the end of his life, I know him, we have some contact, discussions. When I wrote how the Jewish people was invented, he was so angry at me, he stopped to speak to me. Anyway, in the end of his life, I spoke with him. He wrote it, more and more articles, that the only way to keep something of Judaism is in a binational state, because the militarism, the chauvinism of Zionism that become more and more extreme is finishing with Judaism, with this spiritual heritage that was always with the Jews. You understand me? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that I'm quite clear.
Maybe I can ask something. Was it that people like Echad Ha'am were they questioning the idea of this, what you said, the Jewish people? Like, were they questioning the idea that there is something like a Jewish nation, and were they insisting on Judaism being a religion, and that's why they took this position? Or were they actually saying, no, there is a Jewish nation, there are Jewish people, we just don't want a state for them specifically?
It wasn't clear. It isn't always clear with
Okay.
them.
Okay.
I think they didn't understand deeply the question
The
of
difference. Yeah.
nationhood. In the end of the 19th century, the beginning of 10th century, a lot of people, it wasn't clear for them. You understand me?
Right.
Then there is the Judaism has a kind of culture,
Mhm.
deep culture that has relationship with religion, but it's not only religion. It's create also other spiritualities. This idea was very deep with the Hada'am, and after it with the Alliance of the Peace in the 20s, that include most of the intellectuals in Palestine, in Jerusalem. Then if you want when you put the question if they were nationalistic, yes and no, because they were not nationalistic like today. The idea of nation wasn't crystallized clearly in the end of the 19th century. Even Herzl didn't understand.
Right.
The question is sovereignty. Sovereignty.
Yes.
The idea of collective sovereignty. And it's started to crystallize in the end of the 19th century of national sovereignty. It wasn't clear for them. The target wasn't a nation state for them from this kind. By the way, they didn't believe that in a clear nation state in the Middle East. And they didn't believe that Judaism is nationalism. For them, it was much more culture and spirituality. They couldn't separate themselves from the Judaism deeply. It has to be clear. In parallel, they didn't translate this Jewish heritage to a political Zionism. They refused to do it because they didn't believe that it's possible by the Zionist colonization in Palestine. In my book, it's much more detailed. I follow them to understand. And as I told you about Ali Bet Yeshua a few years ago, he arrived to the conclusion that a Jewish state like this, keeping Palestinian people under the boats, the power, has not any future. And I think that Ali Bet Yeshua was right. I'm not sure that we have other, a perspective, a positive perspective of living together. But as I say, you are young, but a few years ago in Ireland, the North, the hate between Catholic and Protestant was so strong. Sometimes I'm thinking, reading about it, it's so strong. They kill each other all the time. And now what happened in Gaza, you show the brutality of the brutality before of the Hamas, after the brutality of the Israeli army. But there are a lot of voices in Israel, young voices, felt more and more uncomfortable about this way of continue to live with the Palestinians. I got letters about it. You understand that people feel and felt that there is not a perspective, there is not a future. And there are a lot of people that arrive to the conclusion that the Zionist state in the Middle East, with the power relationship between all the parts of the, give not a chance living quietly in Israel. My grandson is a year before be mobilized to the army. It's not simple for me. You understand? It's not simple. I'm not the only one. You understand? Hannah Arendt say that it will be permanent war.
That's what it looks like.
Exclusive.
Yeah. I think this history is so interesting, like coming from a Marxist perspective on the whole question of nation and nationality and people. This idea that there is this people that clearly, on the one hand, see themselves at least to some degree, as a people, based by culture, based on religion, at the same time rejecting the consequence of regular nationalism at that time, which means we are a people, we need a state, right? We need our own state because we are a people. And like living then in this kind of tension, because you also spoke about followers of Ahad Ham that were actually started to revise their notion of that people, because they started thinking about the Arabs actually being descendants of Jews and seeing them basically as brothers, correct? They were also like a strand of people that were talking about this issue in that way and try to resolve this conflict in that way by saying, let's just live together again.
You see, I wrote a lot about Judaism. I didn't believe it wasn't a nation and even a people in the sense of modern people. I think that the Jewish people was invented in the end of the 19th century, like the German people. I don't think that 1,000 years ago,
like all nations,
we live with the German, not a Jewish nation, people, not the German people, not the
Right.
French people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Most of the people today in Germany, also in French, understand that 1,000 years ago they were not a nation, not a people, etc. But Jewishness was not only religion. It was first of all religion, but it's great culture, kind of popular culture, specific culture, and especially in East Europe. The Yiddish, the Yiddish culture, and if you want, the real Zionist movement came out from the Yiddish people and not from the Jewish people. I mean, Zionist was not French Jewish or German Jewish. It was especially from Yiddish land in East Europe. The Yiddish land create also very large socialist, Marxist movements in the Russian Empire. Now, if you want to understand why the Ahad Ha'am and the followers, they wanted to keep something, they didn't understand everything, but they wanted to keep something of this heritage that was not religious. The concentration of Jewish in East Europe, most of them very poor, not rich like you think, it create kind of specific culture, daily culture. And a lot of people wanted to keep this culture. They didn't know how to keep it. They knew that they cannot keep it in Europe. This is a kind of Zionism, spiritual Zionism that follows after Ahad Ha'am, keeping some culture, Jewish culture, you understand? Without understanding what is really a Jewish culture, without understanding really what is nationhood. Sorry that
that's okay. Another listener.
my
It's no
dog
problem.
is
He's just agreeing with you.
Anyway, what I wanted to say that what I wanted to say is that it wasn't clear for them. The question is, if I try to make it clear in my book, is that all this tendency were very live. I mean, a lot of intellectuals believe in it. The image of Zionism that we have, political Zionism, is not all Zionism. This I try to show in the book. And I'm not a Zionist historian. I'm an Israeli historian.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
And like it was the Yiddish people in East Europe, today we have Israeli people in Palestine.
Okay, Shlomo. So my final question would be regarding the notion of the binational state. Maybe you can explain this a little bit to people. How does this actually look, and how does it differentiate itself from other solutions, like, for example, one democratic state, like the BDS people, for example, are working towards this? And what's the difference, for example, between a state federation, between two states? Can you explain a little bit how this would look like so that people get an idea what that actually would mean?
I'm not against a two-solution state, but I don't believe the possibility today in 2025 to realize a Palestinian state, in the West Bank and Gaza. I don't believe it. It will not also could touch the problem of the refugees of 48 and all these questions. This is the two-state solution that I really don't believe that it can be realized. I'm not against. More than 50 years, I fought for this solution of two states. Now, about one democratic state, if you want, it's a problem because people are afraid that they will lose their cultural identity, cultural language in a democratic, in one state democratic, you understand, because there is two cultures that exist, Israeli culture and a Palestinian culture. Then the reason that I propose much more a binational state is to keep some characteristic of every culture. You understand me? I mean, like in Belgium, if you take for example the Belgium, they keep the language first of all, the Hebrew language and the Arabic language. In one democratic state, you don't have the institution that can keep it safe. Some characteristic, cultural characteristic. This is the reason that I think that a binational, with all the problematic of a binational state, in point of view of culture, language, and also of political representation, not to that nobody will disappear or feel that it can be disappeared in one democratic nation. I'm not against for a one democratic state, but I don't believe that it can keep the two culture I don't believe that it cannot realize. Then this is the reason that if you want a binational state, not like in South Africa, but much more like in Belgium, to give you an example, or Switzerland, it's a kind of autonomy also to keep an autonomy of every culture, of the two cultures especially. I don't know if I understand response of the question, but as a binational, I think it's much more realistic than a one democratic state, especially to keep the identity of the two groups, the cultural identity. You understand me?
I mean, yes, I do understand. So in the end, that's also why a democratic state and let's say the demand for a democratic state many times is being interpreted by Zionists and by also by normal Israelis, just everyday Israelis, as maybe being a terms of like a way to extinguish this specific Jewish character that they have established. Also, like you said, the language and the culture. And what you're basically saying is that a binational paradigm would circumvent this by not just describing it as a democratic state, which it would probably still be, but at the same time upholding the national autonomy and self-determination of the two people that are there. Yes.
Isn't it? I mean, people don't have to be afraid for being national state that they will lose their identity, cultural national identity, because it can continue to exist with this defense of a formation of political power that will devise between the two people. By the way, between the river and the sea, there are 7.5 million Israelis and 7.5 million Palestinians. I mean, it's more or less the same quantity of population. You understand? I want a equality of citizenship between everybody. You understand? That the citizens will be quite equal. You understand me? By the way, I wanted to change the people that manifest from the river to the sea. Everybody, Palestine has to be free. I propose to change it from the river to the sea. Everybody will be free and equal. You understand me? Now, the equality is very important in the level of citizenship. In the political representation, it's very important to keep the characteristic of every group, cultural group, Arabic and Israeli, Palestinian and Israeli. This is the reason that, in my point of view, I follow all these people that I try to represent them in the book, that it will be the best solution, because every solution is problematic, very problematic, but we don't have a choice. Or to keep with the war all the time till some end. If Palestinians dream to destroy Israel, they have to understand that they will destroy themselves also. If the Israeli dreams to destroy the Palestinians, they have to understand that they will not exist in the Middle East. The compromise is a binational state. It's a kind of compromise, maybe a bad compromise, but the only compromise that I can see that Israelis will continue to feel like Israelis. Take, for example, Haifa. You heard the name of Haifa.
Yeah, of course.
It's not, lately I put forward before a lot of Israelis, we have two choices, or Haifa or Gaza. You understand me? Haifa is a city of Jewish and Arabs living together. Israelis, Arabs, and Jewish Arabs living in one city. It's not a really equality. But the half of the students in the Haifa University are Israeli-Palestinians. You understand? Or Haifa or Gaza. This is the future.
Okay.
Haifa, you said Haifa, yeah?
Haifa, yes.
Yeah, there is a lot of. I think that I send you a map, a demographic map of the existence of Palestinian and Israelis in this, from the river to the sea. You cannot separate. You cannot separate the two states, this population. Not only because there are so many Israelis living today in the West Bank, but because there are more than 2 million Palestinians living in Israel as Israeli citizens, you understand? To keep their identity, to continue to live, we have to choose Haifa or Gaza. Do you understand me?
Yes, I understand. Thanks a lot, Shlomo. I want to say sorry for the technical problems. I don't know exactly if it's on our side or on your side, but should you come again, which we hope, that we speak maybe about some of your other books, I hope the tech will work out fine. Everybody should check out this book. It's called Israel-Palestine, Federation or Apartheid by Shlomo Sand. And Shlomo, I want to thank you again for taking so much time to explain some of the ideas there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Leute, wir brauchen eure Hilfe. Wenn euch dieses Video gefallen hat, klickt auf Like, abonniert den Kanal und vergesst nicht das Glöckchen zu drücken, damit ihr benachrichtigt werdet, wenn wir neuen Content droppen.
Außerdem solltet ihr uns überall folgen, wo wir verfügbar sind. Das ist Facebook, Instagram, Twitter und Twitch. Und wenn wir irgendwelche Ankündigungen machen oder Posts, dann shared, was das Zeug hält. Gebt uns all eure Liebe.
Wir haben mittlerweile ziemlich signifikante Kosten. Wenn ihr es euch irgendwie leisten könnt, unterstützt uns doch auf Patreon. Dann kommt ihr auch in den Genuss verschiedener Vorteile, wie zum Beispiel Zugang zu unserer Discord-Community oder Zugang zu den ultrageheimen Patreon-Episoden, die wir dort posten. Außerdem könnt ihr uns natürlich auch über PayPal Spenden zukommen lassen.
Außerdem haben wir mittlerweile einen eigenen Online-Shop. Das heißt, wenn ihr euch immer noch fragt, was ihr euren Lieben zu Weihnachten, Ostern oder sonst wie schenken könnt, geht dorthin und kauft duftes Merch.
Alle Links dazu hier in der Beschreibung oder auch auf unserer Webseite 99zu1.de.
Vielen Dank fürs Dabeisein, danke für die Unterstützung und wir sehen uns in diesem Theater.